This is Keaton DC with Max and Brent, unlocking the market on the district's first real estate podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to Keaton DC. I'm your host, Max Rabin. My co-host, Brent Jackson, is right here.
Max, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to tell our listeners, first of all, thank you so much for listening and making this part of your routine. And if this is your first time listening or you haven't already subscribed to our podcast, that'd be awesome if you could do that. We'd really appreciate it. We're just really enjoying bringing you real estate information and entertainment, and we want to keep doing that. And yeah, please keep listening, and we appreciate it so much. But Brent, let's talk just a little bit about the fall market in Washington, D.C. here. It has been a little intense already, wouldn't you say?
It's been very intense, and I'm seeing an inventory pickup across the board. Doesn't matter what price point or submarket. It's a little crazy out there right now.
It's a little wild. There's been a lot of multiple offers on a lot of stuff already. I wrote one the other day that was, thank God we got it. But just writing an offer, $100,000 over the asking price, seller said no thanks, then let it go through the weekend, then two more offers come in. I think you know this drill. So it's sort of back to that for a certain product, not everything, but it's sort of kind of hot again, right?
It is, but I also think it depends on what price point of market you're working in, because we've seen the opposite where an offer will come in right off the bat. The seller wants to hold for that $100,000 over list price. Nothing comes through the following weekend, and now they're thinking maybe it's 2-3% off the list price.
Mm-hmm. And, speaking of someone who has a real read on what has been staying on the market and what goes off the market really quickly, let's bring in our guest. Our guest today is Jamie Manning. Jamie she's not a realtor, but she is a real estate influencer here in DC. She has a very popular blog called Exposed Brick DC. She's the proprietor, curator, and owner of that. And she shares her musings on the DC real estate market. She talks about style. She talks about trends. What's great about the blog, what connects, is her audience really gets her personality through all of it. It's all her. It's really friendly. It's really smart. And it's no surprise that her social media is also extremely popular. So Jamie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. It's really exciting to be here.
So let's jump right into, how about a little bit of Jamie origin story? Where are you? You're from the DC area originally. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Charlottesville, so not too far from here. But yeah, I've born and raised in Charlottesville, and then went to school down in South Carolina, and then came up to DC right after I graduated and never left.
When did you graduate?
2011.
So you've been in the DC area for 10 years now?
Yeah, so I think I can say I'm a true Washingtonian at this point. I think that's the rule I've heard. If you've been here 10 years, you can say that. But I don't know, you guys might disagree with me.
I'm from West Virginia, so I've been here for almost 15 years. So if that's the case, I guess I'm a Washingtonian.
Yeah, you're in.
Just is totally off subject here, but are you a Dave Matthews fan too? Because I know he's from the Charlottesville area. And John Grisham.
Yes. So I've seen Dave Matthews just around town, which was pretty cool. Like in high school, I saw him. We're at this corner market having lunch, and he walked by, and I stared at him with my jaw to the ground, and he just looked at me and smiled. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. I couldn't even get any words out.
That's
He's
awesome.
pretty famous. I'm sure it happens to him a lot.
Probably, yeah.
So you should get over that. So did you have real estate in your life when you were young? Were you interested in real estate even before college, or tell us?
Yeah. So my dad's actually an architect and a developer. So our spring breaks growing up were always focused on great cities with great architecture. So, when I was in middle school and high school, I didn't think it was that great. But my dad took us to all these wonderful cities growing up, and would just walk around and we'd look at buildings and talk about buildings. And that was his idea of a great vacation. And then my mom did sell real estate for a while and just has a really good eye when it comes to interior design. So it's funny, real estate and design is kind of a topic of conversation at our kitchen table often.
Curious, does your dad have a favorite city of architecture?
Well, so he went to UVA and has stayed in Charlottesville even past graduating. And he's a big fan of all this sort of Jeffersonian type traditional architecture for sure.
That's awesome.
Did you guys travel like anywhere out of the country looking at architecture when you were younger too?
Yeah, so we took a couple of trips. We went to Quebec in Canada, which was cool, Quebec and Montreal. We spent some time in London. I'm trying to think. I went to Argentina when I was in college. But yeah, we really kind of focused on the United States, which is funny. I think my dad's been to just about every state at this point in his life.
You guys have one of those big maps in your house that dot all the places you've been to. Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually an exercise that we went through during COVID because everyone was talking about, oh man, when we travel next, where are we going to go? And everyone started thinking like, okay, have you been to this state? Have you been to that state? And we started listing all the states that we've been to. It was, one of those mindless COVID activities.
Yes, there were many of those. Now that reflecting on that, and it wasn't even that long ago, there was a lot of mindless activity right there. Okay. So you have a career outside of real estate, and then you got into real estate. How long ago did you, tell me a little bit about your career? Like, what do you do for a living outside of real estate?
Yeah, so I came to DC to work in public affairs. I worked for a small boutique issue advocacy firm focused on ballot measures. So I did a lot of ballot measure work the first 6 years I was here, traveling around the country, engaging in those sort of fights. And
ballot like for the president?
Mostly state and local issues.
I was going to say that could be pretty intense the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, we never did candidate work, and I never really had an interest in doing candidate work for that reason. And I was at this firm until 2016, I believe. My last project I worked on was a ballot measure in Oklahoma City, a statewide ballot measure for Oklahoma. And so after that, I kind of got, I was ready to get off the campaign trail. And by that point, I was doing Exposed Brick, the blog, for maybe 3 or 4 years at that point. And it was always just kind of like a creative outlet. And I've, put it aside for a time. I've picked it back up. It's always kind of been this thing that's been in the background. But today I work more in digital advertising, but it's still very politically focused.
So you're still in the digital ad game.
Yep.
But you did get a real estate license at one point, and you started working at a real estate company in DC. I did. And I have to say, I really admire what you all do. It is quite hard work. But that experience, I wanted to get licensed because I love real estate and I wanted to learn everything I could about it. So it was an awesome experience. And I'm really glad that I got my license. And I think it makes the blog even better, the fact that I have that knowledge. But my experience of working as an agent full-time for that short period really showed me a lot about what I liked about real estate and what I didn't like about it. And what I really enjoy is talking and discussing and being creative around real estate. I don't enjoy, the more business transactional side of it. So going through that experience, it really just reaffirmed the fact that the blog is really what makes me happiest and really where I want to focus my attention. So full disclosure to our audience, I've known Jamie for a little while. We met doing a transaction. I think it was a rental, and you had sort of started working on rentals. You wanted to sort of corner the rental market, or you were sort of curating the rental listings and working on that, which I thought at the time, I was like, that's an interesting idea. If you could really collect enough rental business, you could maybe make it profitable. But also for our audience in DC, it's not like Boston or New York that has a very specific way of doing rental listings. In DC, there's not a lot of money for real estate agents for rentals. So, and it's the
same amount, if not more work.
Probably more work on a lot of these leases. So,
and you get into more trouble too. That's the other thing. I tell our team, do not touch rentals, because next thing you know, it's you offended somebody of a protected class, and you're going to real estate jail because you said something you weren't supposed to for a fraction of the dollars. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but I commend you for getting into the business and focusing on rentals.
Well, she was going for an angle, but rentals kind of there's sort of an interest of yours because that's sort of part of your routine. We're skipping around a little bit, but your blog is very well organized, and the way you do your social media is all very well organized. I think that's really important for people to understand is how to make this work. I mean, your personality and everything comes through with it, but you're also extremely organized about it. And one of the things that you do is you still talk about rentals on your media and your social media. It's sort of because it's sort of part of where you started with this. So, but I mean, to me, rentals, I guess, I mean, obviously people have to live everywhere and they have to do this kind of stuff, but it's like, how do you still find the time to even to look at all of those listings too?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So the idea of me kind of focusing on rentals, it was never really about the money. It wasn't like, how can I make money doing this? It was more of, how can I see more of the type of properties that I could actually afford? Because at that point in my life, when I started Exposed Brick, like the thought of buying something was way off. And so I just wanted to be able to interact with the inventory that I could actually feasibly touch. So again, it was like, spawned out of just passion. So I did just focus on rentals for a very long time. But as I've grown up and as my audience has grown up, we've all kind of started to make that transition of, okay, I've rented for a while. Now I think I want to buy something. And so I'm right there with them in trying to understand, okay, what does buying look like? And so that's where the blog is really transitioned. But I think keeping a pulse on the rental market is really important and just as exciting. Like, just because you might not be in a place where you can afford to buy at this time in your life doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to be excited about where you live. And so that was kind of how the blog was born, is that I wanted everybody to feel excited about where they were going to live. And I didn't want it to feel like this tedious sort of task of finding something. I wanted there to be a place where you go and you can look at, listings that are quality and beautiful and not get bogged down by the process.
So I have a question. I was on the website earlier, and I believe that the rentals are at the bottom and you have the 2-month free rental buildings. Which I think is great because everybody's looking for a handout here and there. It doesn't matter what price bracket you're in. But do these buildings reach out to you? Do you get a fee for service or anything like that with these buildings that are on your website?
It's just the goodness of my heart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. A kind of a long-term project of mine, or a goal that I set a long time ago, was I was like, I'm going to try to create a list of every apartment building in DC. And let's just see how many there are. And let's see if I can think of all of them.
Wow.
I'm up to over 400 on my list at this point.
Wait, you actually... I
did it.
What?
I just don't think it's complete yet. I'm sure there are more than 400 at this point.
There must be.
Yeah. But I spent a lot of time this summer, which again, I need to get a life, but I just thought it'd be a cool project. And so I just go through and I cross-reference that list to figure out. I just go to each homepage. It doesn't take that long to see who's offering what.
Well, I am, of course, following all of your media, and I get your updates and everything. It's all extremely attractive for starters.
Thank you.
Do you have people that help you put these things together, or are you doing this all on your own? Tell us about that.
I do it all on my own.
Wow.
I'm a one-woman shop. There was a time where I hired a few people to try to help me out, and everyone was really excited to get started. And after about a few months, they were like, "This is too much work. I don't understand how you do this by yourself. Like, I can't even handle this." So, I tried that route, but I realized it's just I'm kind of going to be a one-man show for the foreseeable future. But in terms of things looking pretty, that's, aesthetics, I think, is really, really drives a lot of the things that I pick. But I also want to make sure that there's a range. Like, I think there's a lot of sort of like, real estate porn accounts out there, which are fun to look at from time to time. But what I really like is being able to potentially envision myself somewhere. So that's why I think it's really important to show properties that are beautiful at all price points.
So are you taking the photos? Because your Instagram account I love the Instagram account. And I think the photos are editorial. Are you taking these photos or getting the photos from somewhere else?
No, I'm getting the photos from MLS.
Okay.
So I'm making sure that things are tagged appropriately. Because that was something that I ran into in the beginning of like, oh, look at this good photo. And then, I had brokerages and photographers reaching out to me being like, you can't use that. So I always make sure to credit. So if there's any other, real estate agents listening out there and I use something of yours, please just reach out and I will always make sure to credit you.
Yeah, you're always really... I was just going to say that you're really good about that, also crediting other brokers and agents with their listings and their product, whereas social media, especially for real estate, has become sort of a free-for-all. I'm sure there are some guidelines written somewhere, but it's evolved to the point of, you've got stories on Instagram from some realtors of other things and TikTok and everything else. So, but you're very good about that.
Yeah, thank you. I really try to make an effort every time I post something to try and find an agent's handle on Instagram. And it's funny because sometimes I don't know what to do because it seems like I can find them, but it's more of a personal account. And so I'm like, I don't know if they want to be exposed to this audience from like a personal account. So then I'll try to find their team account. Right. So I really do try to make an effort to credit people appropriately.
So let's talk a little bit about how you organize your week with the blog and your social media, because I think a lot of our realtor listeners are always working on tweaking their social media calendar. That's one of the hardest things to get started with, especially for newer agents, is how to do their social media, how to set it up without burning out on it or having to overthink it. So how do you set up your week? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think, a calendar is huge, but I think given our industry, it can't be so rigid. That's kind of what makes running the blog a little bit hard is like on Thursdays and Friday morning is when I tend to look at new listings. That's just, when most seem to come online. And I can't really plan out for the entire week because as you guys know, there are probably listings that I like that will be gone in a day or 2 days. So there's no real sense in me writing something up and posting it even on a delay because it could be gone. So really what I try to focus on is just larger themes and break it up by day of the week. So like, let's start with Monday. I try to come up with these cute little names and I think they're fine, but like Monday's Make an Offer Monday. So These are properties that I've had my eye on that are still on the market and encouraging people like, hey, you guys, buyers have wiggle room here. If you saw this post 2 weeks ago, go get it.
Not to cut you off because you're going through the week, but the Make an Offer Monday thing is it's a tool for me because I see your post and I'm like, wait, these are still on the market. And then I can literally take them to my buyers and say, you saw this one, it's not gone.
Yeah. It's funny.
You're curating these and you're doing this work.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Like agents, I get DMs from agents from time to time being like, my buyer keeps sending me your stuff. Like, where are you getting this stuff? How are you picking it? Or people with agents, like buyers will DM me and be like, can you send this to my agent? And I'm like, you need to get a better agent if they aren't sending me this stuff. So yeah, Make an Offer Monday is Monday. Tuesday, I talk about closings because I think that that's kind of a missing piece of the puzzle where, you see great properties and then they're off the market and you don't take the time to be like, oh, I wonder what happened with that property. Like how much did it sell for? And so those are always fun, especially in this crazy market to see like, oh my gosh, that went $100,000 over ask. Like that's insane.
You're literally reporting like the real estate news.
Yeah, breaking news.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit here, understanding you have a passion and you've always been interested in real estate with the family background, but how did you arrive on Exposed Brick DC?
Yeah, so I cannot take credit for the name. It was a family friend of ours because I thought about starting this blog and we were kind of, kicking around different names. And she said, what about something around Exposed Brick, which then Exposed Brick DC was born. And it's actually a very good name for, Google Juju because a lot of people Google Exposed Brick apartments in DC because they want that.
It's brilliant branding. It's so DC. It's really smart.
Yeah.
So curious, like even for our listeners, did that play into your mindset as far as the name and Google? Because not everybody thinks about Google optimization, search engines, right? It's kind of like, oh, let me have this cool little name.
Yeah, no, I can't take credit for being that forward thinking because honestly, I had no idea what this was going to evolve into. I thought that this was just going to be like my own little creative space. I had no idea that it was going to gain such a following.
So let's go back to your calendar. So you Make an Offer Monday, and on Tuesdays you talk about closings. Yeah. What's Wednesday?
Rentals. So that's when I do this rental drop where I feature 10 to 12 cool rentals that have come online in the last week. And then Thursday, what is Thursday?
You tell me.
Throwback Thursday.
Yeah, so I did do some Throwback Thursday stuff, but most of the times I'm kind of tired by Thursday because I actually spend a lot of time online on Thursday going through new listings. So I don't do a ton of storying on Thursday, but I also make sure that I post on my feed, Monday through Friday, which I think there's some debate in the social media community on whether or not that's truly important. But there's enough content in my head that it's not a big deal for me, but I don't think that's necessarily something you have to do.
But it's still remarkable because you're one of the social media accounts that I'm looking at all the time, and your stories are always you start off like good morning, and you have a beautiful photo or something borrowed from another real estate type of account, and then you just go through your ideas of the day. And it reminds me, if I haven't storied in 6 or 7 hours, I have to get on it. I have to quickly get something going because you're so consistent. It's just very measured.
Yeah, thanks. And I think having that kind of schedule really helps. So you don't feel like you're scrambling.
Right.
So do you have an app that helps you with that? Or are you every single day doing the posting? Like for myself, I think Max, or one of those podcasts, or one of the things I was listening to, they recommended an app so I can post every day of the week on Thursday, and it'll just drop automatically at like 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. So like Creator Studio is what I usually use. And that's just, like Facebook's back end. And so you can schedule your posts on Facebook and Instagram. But again, I don't schedule a lot of posts. Like the longest kind of schedule I'll do is maybe 24 hours. Like maybe I'll write something late at night and I'll be like, oh, I don't know if this really makes sense. And so I won't publish it. And then I'll, look at it again in the morning. So I'm mostly honestly just saving drafts. I'm not really scheduling much just because of the threat of maybe the listing being gone by the time I post it.
Well, regardless, I think we're listening to someone, you, who is genuinely interested in the topic that you're talking about. And so the energy that you're putting towards it it's correct. Like you said you're thinking about things, you're writing things. You're not just doing it out of the mechanics of doing it. It's part of what you like and what you enjoy, and it shows. Yeah,
it's very much a creative outlet. Like my friends and family are thrilled that I have this, or else I'd be talking their ear off about real estate stuff that they don't care about.
So do you ever do sponsored posts? Like agents will pay you X amount of dollars to get their listings on your page, or sponsored post?
Yeah, so I have dabbled in that, and I do think that it could be something that I do again, but I'm really kind of more focused on growing the site, growing the brand. And, again, this is my creative outlet. I have a full-time day job. I don't really want to complicate things too much at this point, but that could be something I do in the future. It's
so genuine. It's killing me.
Sorry.
Yes. I mean, it is a full-time job. So you have like two full-time jobs. It's impressive. Do you see any of your current day job, the digital advertising, like roll over into your current space with Exposed Brick?
Yeah. I mean, I think learning so much about the digital advertising world has really helped me understand the value of Exposed Brick and understanding, okay, what are good metrics? And so if there does ever get to a point where I want to be more intentional about monetizing the site, I'm fortunate that I'll have a pretty good background and understanding of, okay, this is what this is worth.
Speaking of metrics, though, so obviously I'm sure you're looking at your analytics. Let's just say for Instagram, what types of posts are your most engaging?
So I don't like to say this, but it's usually posts where it's a picture of me or something about my personal life, which I hate posting about. But I think the nature of social media is it's about people. Social. Yes. And so people want to know about you, but all I want to talk about is real estate. So the best posts have been around, sort of me or why I got into doing Exposed Brick. But then I will say as a close second, or just some of the more outrageous posts. Like there was this one recently where it was a 1-bedroom condo. You guys might know the name of the building, but you walk out and there is a pool. Like has direct access from the condo to a pool. I can't think of that one. Yeah. It's kind of near H Street. Okay. It was like I think it used to be a school.
Oh, Pierce School.
Yes.
Oh, Pierce School.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone went crazy over that because they were like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool, building, a cool unit. Yeah. And then to be able to open your door and jump in the pool, like that's awesome.
That got a little viral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fun fact, we tried to sell that about 8 years ago and we had 2 buyers on it. Everything fills it apart. And then we ended up giving the listing back. The owners kept it and gave it to somebody else to sell like years down the road. But Dwight Howard had the penthouse in that building. So our clients it was a 10,000 square foot penthouse in there, and they sold it to Dwight Howard, who has since sold it again. But that's one of the coolest buildings in the city, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, fun fact part 2 about that building. There was a gentleman who lived in Capitol Hill who was the ambassador to the Chickasaw Nation, a Native American tribe. And he was a client and friend of ours. And he knew the owners of the building when it was still just rental apartments that had been converted by these two gentlemen. And I was sort of thinking of moving at the time. He's like, "Oh, you need to come see my friend's building." And he was like showing me this building as a place where I could rent a unit. And it was literally like walking into a school classroom with, I think the lockers were still up. And I was like, "Charles, I can't live in it. This is like
the lockers and
way too lofty, you know?"
And they kept I think it's the original urns too, which weirded out some of the females.
Oh, yes.
But they're,
Yeah.
There is a urinal in this unit, and people have been like, "What?"
Yeah. Maybe take that out.
Well, I had a question. So when did Exposed Brick take off? So I guess I don't know if it was 2016 or 13, you started to do this, you're dabbling in it. And then when did it all of a sudden just click on and it just took off?
Yeah, it actually took off very immediately. Mm-hmm. So when I came onto the scene of, the idea of curating Craigslist, I kind of went for a big earned media push because I wanted, everyone in DC to know that I was doing this. So I had a lot of good coverage in the first 6 months between like Urban Turf, the Washington Express, which is no longer, but a lot.
Back on Urban Turf, though, what would you do with Urban Turf?
So I'm pretty sure I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, like, I love your site. I know you guys cover a lot of what's going on in DC real estate. I've just launched this blog if it's of interest." And they wrote a story about it. So I ended up getting an amazing amount of traction just from that story alone.
Okay.
And then the Washington Express did a whole spread in the paper, came and photographed my apartment and things like that. So that was really cool. So in the first 6 months of the blog launching, I had 1 million page views. So it blew up right at the beginning.
Wow.
And then I just kind of lost momentum and was like, here are other things I'm dabbling in, and I've just kind of been in and out of it since then.
Yeah, I remember I met you were working on this, and then you kind of hit a lull with it, and then we were chatting about it another time, and then you kicked it up again, and you've been super consistent now for what, a couple, 3 years, really? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was really COVID that inspired me to get back into it because like everybody else, I was so bored and I was like, wow, how am I going to fill my time? And then I was like, oh, I remember I actually really used to enjoy blogging about real estate. So that's kind of when I picked it up. But yeah, life ebbs and flows. And there were times when I didn't get a lot of joy out of doing this. And I made sure just to put it on the shelf. And I never wanted to sell it. I had offers from other people asking if I would sell to them. But I've always just wanted to keep it as sort of an outlet.
Well, yeah, if you ever need some cash, though, if you have a really active blog, I mean, people would certainly be happy to pay for that, take the branding and dump a bunch of ads on it. Yep. Right? It's kind of what happens.
Have you thought about that, though, maybe we talked about this earlier, but again, if like Urban Turf, right, that's our prime example. I mean, that's nothing more than it's a great blog, but we as agents can pay to put our face on there. We can pay to do an email blast. Have you thought about going that route?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a model that works. I think the team at Urban Turf is far more robust than I am. They're like a full-fledged business at this point.
Yeah, it's like a publication sort of.
Yeah, and I love what they do. I'm an avid follower. But I think down the road, maybe that could be a possibility if I wanted to make this more of my full-time gig.
So aside from, you were saying that your personal post, stuff about yourself, I know that you're renovating a house in Charlottesville. So stuff like that you find is pretty engaging with people. They're interested in what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think that like just diversifying the content a little bit is helpful. I know there's been a big push on Instagram for everyone to do reels. Yeah. And I actually don't have a lot of content that I can use in terms of reels because I'm not the one going out seeing these places like Max. Like you do an awesome job on TikTok because you're going in person. You're making these awesome videos where I'm just like in my house on the internet putting things together. So I don't have a lot of video content to work with. So I was like, okay, the only thing I can really videotape is maybe this renovation, but I haven't been that good about it, to be honest. I should have documented it more.
Well, bear with me on this.
Okay.
See, because I think, again, what you're doing is so personality driven. It's you. People like you. They clearly and really enjoy what you're saying and what you're doing. I think maybe your content could expand to video, like you facing up and talking, like literally talking about things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have something in the works, so I'm sorry if I spoiled something. But we interviewed Julie Sousa, who has a really big TikTok account, and she does interior design and interior styling. And a lot of her stuff is face up, and how she builds her posts around that on TikTok. And that's how she really built an audience. Obviously, she's trying to build a business too with that. So it's a little different. But that's kind of like the wave right now is...
Yeah, I totally hear you. I think it's just, I just don't really want the blog to be about me. I want it to be about real estate. And I think that if I were to do more on camera stuff, more engaging, because again, like the heart of social media is seeing people and engaging people, I think that the account could grow much faster. But at this point, I don't know if that's necessarily worth it to me or not. To be this like personality doesn't really appeal to me. At this point, it could change.
No, I mean, if it doesn't appeal to you and you don't feel natural doing it, that'll come across too. If you were like, but if you were making the decision that I have to do exposed brick for dollars, I need to make 6 figures off this or 7 figures off this blog, you would certainly have your face on the camera. You'd be like,
absolutely.
Hey, everybody.
Yes.
So that's for sure.
This is the question for both of you guys. Like for me, right? We have our group Instagram. I have my personal, I have like 400 followers. But what role do you think social media plays in today's real estate world, whether as a consumer or as an agent?
From my perspective, for me, mostly, I'd say staying in front of the people that I already know is probably first and foremost, especially on Instagram, because there's not a whole lot of ways to organically generate new followers, at least for me personally. So I think it's a lot consistency, showing attractive things, showing some quirky things that I come across, part of my sense of humor, just what I think is okay to put on social media, nothing too ridiculous. And as far as the TikTok stuff, though, I do. It's just, I don't know. That's all about, let me think about that for a second. I don't know. I really just started doing it and I just enjoy doing it. I'm really looking for a dopamine hit. I love the likes and the new followers. So it makes me very, very happy to do TikTok all the time. So that's some joy.
Do you get bummed out if you have like when it just goes flat?
I mean, it's part of the rhythm of the way the app works. So not everything's going to go viral. And sometimes I'll put like a little extra effort into something and it doesn't pop. And you're like disappointed, but oh well, there's always another TikTok coming around the corner there. But Jamie, how do you feel? Like, have you ever worked on a post like that where you were like, okay, I really put some effort and thought and the analytics didn't hit or it didn't come across the right way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are so many things that I'll work on and I'll be like, man, this is going to be awesome because I think it's awesome. But that doesn't necessarily mean a lot of other people think it's awesome. But I do think that social media is really important in real estate. And I think we talked a little bit about this when we did that little Clubhouse thing. In terms of accessibility, I've had so many first-time home buyers reach out to me saying, I had no idea it was possible to buy. And like, thank you so much for sharing about different programs or, showing different price points. And I think that, the internet itself has made buyers sort of access to properties a lot easier. But, I think to have something so personal as it's coming on your phone, like there's real commentary associated with it, I think has just made the whole industry feel a little less intimidating for people from the outside looking in.
So how long were you actively working in sales and rentals as a licensed agent? Like how long was that time period? Like
full-time or just dabbling?
Or even part-time to full-time, because when was in that era?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. So I think in 2016, like I would say in 2015 and 2016, I was kind of just doing rentals on the side, which ultimately got super burned out because I was working 9 to 5 on Monday through Friday and then doing rental stuff during the weekend. No. So I realized that wasn't sustainable. But then when I left my job in 2016, I was full-time for like, I want to say maybe 6 months. It wasn't very long.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. Cause like you weren't hardcore in it. Like, Brent and myself been doing this for years and years, but when you do your social media stuff where you're letting people just ask any question they want. Mm-hmm. You're extremely well versed and well educated on some of the legal stuff and these sort of insider stuff too. So I don't know if that's just something you keep up with because it's still like there's a hobby aspect to it, or if you learned all that stuff so quickly before because it's a lot of knowledge that you're dropping. Yeah,
I mean, I think going through the process of purchasing property myself helped to sort of understand that process. And I follow lenders and other agents who are in the market, and when they share stuff, I always try to listen. But I will say I am no expert, and there has definitely been times where I've shared something, and the financial side of it still isn't my forte. And I'll have, someone reach out to me and it was like, no, like it's actually should be 5%, not 3%. And so I'm happy to like correct that. I don't want to be like an authority by any means, but I just hoping to generate a conversation and get people interested.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people that are just getting started in, not necessarily real estate, but into social media? Because there's some agents that are just getting started into social media. And then there's some, I don't want to say dinosaurs, but agents that have been doing it for like 30 or 40 years. And
you just said it. It's too late. I don't want to say it, but I said it.
Yeah. It's like, we just got them hooked up to the internet and they're like, oh, you know what? We went from dial up to, Fios or whatever. But do you have any advice for like agents that are just getting into social media?
Yeah. I mean, I think a plan is really key. Consistency is key. Being genuine is key. And I think it's okay also to ask for help. There are a lot of people out there who really understand social media and have made a career out of, consulting. And if you have the means to work with somebody like that, I think that could really jumpstart your presence online.
This is a follow-up question to both of you guys, but again, I'm just thinking, person just starting, switched careers, whatnot. Would you recommend, Brent Jackson Instagram, or similar to Exposed Brick DC? Would you have some sort of a niche that you would have and try to build that up, like penthouses in DC or only Navy Yard or whatnot?
Jamie?
I think that what's more important to consider is overall brand consistency and making sure that whatever you go with is how you present that's the name you present across all fronts.
I agree with that. I think that if you want to have your personal name on things, that's fine. Your name can be a great brand. But if you have one thing as your name and another thing as, I'm just looking at this thing that says Squadcast, like Squadcast Realty. I don't know. And people get confused as to who's doing what. You're going to thin your audience a little bit. So you kind of have to keep it consistent, unless you're large enough and you've got different groups of audiences from different things. But it's usually not the case for a real estate agent.
Have you had any flops on your rise up to stardom here?
Like flops, like posts that didn't work, or bad decisions.
Or maybe some agent called and screamed at you, or maybe it's a crazy seller. It's like, why is my house on this Instagram?
Yeah, so I don't know if I've necessarily had like any super crazy experiences. I mean, for the most part, people have been pretty nice. I think that people have reached out. I think I mentioned like the photo thing, being like, you can't use this photo. And it's very interesting to me when people reach out in such a like sort of hostile way, like assuming that I'm going to be like, too bad or something. I'm always willing to.
People are so nasty to each other. It's just
They're ready for confrontation.
Yeah.
Always. So yeah, there are. I have to be careful in that sense and make sure that I diffuse those situations that shouldn't escalate from the beginning. But that's about the only thing that's ever really happened.
So it's a good experience in general.
Yes.
You can't please everybody.
No.
I mean, this is a story that, probably shouldn't say, and maybe we can edit it out, but we did a...
There he goes again.
we did a handwritten letter up to Bethesda looking at... We have a client that only wants this particular neighborhood. So I did a handwritten letter, envelope and the letter, and then I had two nasty people just call and like, bitch me out. I didn't take the phone call, but they literally left a 3-minute message, both of them, on my voicemail. I'm like, some people just have too much time. And to your point, it's like...
It happens.
Send a text like, hey, do you mind taking the photo down? There's no reason to be nasty about it.
Well, yeah, on that though, Brent, like when you have people who are receiving your postcard, which is a harmless thing that comes in the mail like many other postcards, and then they send it back to you with all this angry serial killer scribbled writing on it, like back to you at your office. That means they had to take the postcard, write all over it in Sharpie in the crazy writing, put it into an envelope, put postage on it, and send it back to you. It's like you could have just tossed it in the trash. Mm-hmm. So we got all types out here.
Yeah, you got to have thick skin for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Brent, let's hit her with some rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire, here we go. What is your favorite TV show? If you watch TV, it seems like a lot of our podcasters don't listen to or watch TV.
That is true. I do not watch a lot of TV. I'm just thinking about the Emmys. I did watch all of the Queen's Gambit. I thought that was very good.
That was awesome.
That was great. That was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I'm watching Ted. I think that's a really good episode too, or a good series. Ted.
Ted Lasso, or
yeah, that's it. Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know the name of it.
I'm half asleep when I'm watching it. Favorite podcast you listen to when not at Keaton, DC?
I was going to say this one.
Thank
that's
you.
Not an acceptable answer.
It is. It is an
Okay,
if it is your favorite, it's acceptable.
It's my favorite.
Perfect.
Aside from your favorite blog.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I follow so many. I don't know if Urban Turf is considered a blog, but that's like one that I follow pretty closely. But there aren't a lot of other people that do exactly what I do in terms of curating. There are some really wonderful like Instagram photographers who, take pictures of houses in DC. And so that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy too. 3 more.
What book are you reading, or what book would you recommend?
Yeah. So I just finished the Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Yes.
Have you read that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm kind of late to the game, but I thought it was just okay. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, I'll tell you, I started reading it a while ago, I think when it was more fresh, and I kind of got a little piece of the way into it and thought it was stupid. And then I picked it up again later because I read another one of his books, and so I read it out of that further interest, and then I enjoyed it more.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so maybe it takes a second time. But in terms of real estate, Evicted is a book that I recommend a lot on my Instagram, and it's about the housing crisis. And it follows 8 renters, I believe, in Milwaukee, and follows them about how they can't pay their rent and the eviction process. But it gives perspectives from both the landlord and the tenant, which I think is interesting. And it's one of the only books that I've read where the author gives, I think, some good thought into how to potentially solve this unsolvable problem.
That sounds like a great one.
Yeah, it's something I would definitely recommend picking up, especially living in, any major city.
For sure.
And the little bit of spare time you have aside from blogging, what are your hobbies?
So yes, blogging does take up a lot of my time. But I love antiquing, flea markets, that kind of stuff. I used to always go to open houses just before COVID. Now it's I try to be a little bit more mindful there. But a lot of my free time really does revolve around rentals and homes for sale and how to decorate one and how would I, organize this space, all that sort of thing.
I love to antique. There's when we go to West Virginia and Lewisburg and in White Sulphur Spring, they have a couple of strips of just antique stores, which I love.
I love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Last question. From your seat as a blogger, do you have any predictions for the rest of 2021 in the real estate market?
Yeah. So kind of what you guys were saying at the beginning of the episode, I've been surprised about the amount of inventory that's come up just in these last couple of weeks. It's kind of like Christmas morning for me when I get on MLS Thursday night and be like, ooh, what's come up? And I think it was the weekend after Labor Day that I was overwhelmed by the amount of inventory. Yeah. I think that I went through 400 listings that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. So I'm really hoping that leads to a little bit of a softening in the market. And I'm hoping that buyers, have a little bit more of a shot.
Pressure relief.
Yeah. So that's the hope. And I do think rental prices are on their way up.
Yes, I agree with that. Well, Jamie, we love having you on here and fantastic stuff. And thank you for sharing all your insights and keep up the awesome work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This was fun. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Keyed in DC with your hosts, Max and Brent. Unlocking the market on the district's first real estate podcast. Remember to subscribe to Keyed in DC on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen. Follow us on Instagram at Raven Max and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at Maxwell Raven _properties.